I'm getting into a little bit of a thorny issue with one news item in particular, and it's basically the LGBTQ2 apology made by Justin Trudeau on behalf of the Canadian government for the way they treated or the way they expunged the gay people from public service and the military, etc., etc. The reason it's thorny is because I think there's some definitions that have to be made, and maybe not so much definitions, but directions that have to be made when it comes to the public apology. I grew up in Trinidad. I said that in a previous video, although I didn't go into the whole thing about sexuality in Trinidad and what homosexuality, specifically speaking, in Trinidad is like. But in Trinidad, I grew up in a climate of basically not having freedom in terms of my sexual preference, in terms of my homosexuality, and I think that's a very well known fact. It's still in the law books in Trinidad when it comes to what homosexuality is in terms of a legal framework. It's illegal, and I think a lot of countries around the world still have these laws and these anti-equal marriage and anti-gay this and anti-gay that in Africa, in Australia, although Australia is, soon to be, same-sex marriage pro. So, but, when considering the world, there are a lot of countries with anti-homosexual laws on their books, and it's mainly driven by religious adherence or religious teachings, etc., etc. So it's not like it's an issue when it comes to the whole gay thing. And I know I'm kind of talking in umbrella terms here, but when it comes to the whole gay thing, there is still persecution that happens across the world. I mean, ISIS throws gay people off of high places, and effectively killing them for being gay. Interesting though, it's interesting that gay people, in light of those types of laws, still manage to have gay sex. I mean, it's I don't mean to make it funny, but I mean, wow. Like, I mean, I remember in Trinidad when I was growing up, understanding as a very young kid that I was different, that I was gay. I remember thinking things like, I'll never, ever, ever, ever let anybody know I'm gay. Like, it's something that I have to never let out. So it's, it's amazing the bravery of some people to get to that point is very strange. And I'm sure there's a lot of cases where, there's miscommunication or wrongful identity, etc., that kind of permeates the consequences of being gay. Anyway, so the point being is, like, when it came to Justin Trudeau apologizing to the gay community, and I think that's the way it was kind of marketed, apologizing to the gay community. It's coming from Trinidad. It's kind of a weird space to be in, because where I came out was in Canada. Like, I actually came out in Canada, so he wasn't really apologizing to me, because I mean, I was actually a lot freer in terms of coming out when I came to Canada. So I don't know where that apology sits with me exactly. And I think a lot of gays have this kind of natural association with persecution, because I think it's just so prevalent around the world. Like, I think gay people just have this instinct to persecution. Even just reading it in the news, or still seeing stories in Canada and in the United States and in various countries around the world, etc., that still speak to this persecution complex. And maybe it's not a complex. I can't say maybe it's not a complex. It's something that is actually happening around the world, and we are all connected, etc., etc. So, we still there is this innate sort of understanding of oppression that gay people have. I still feel it. Like, I still feel it to this day. Like, I mean, maybe it has to do with my country of origin. Who knows? But I think a lot of Canadians, gay Canadians or queer Canadians, still feel that way too. And you know, once you start talking about the gay thing is like, you know, you're really sort of on the left, almost by default. Like you're sort of placed on the left, or you have this sort of like natural inclination to have this postmodern view of the world in terms of scientific truth and gender identity and, you know, things like that. Like once you're put into that queer space, you kind of automatically have to assume this postmodern understanding of sexuality and what being human is, etc., 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 and you adopt it almost subliminally, like as something that, well, yeah, like my sexuality is deviant from the norm, so everybody's sexuality is deviant, and everything is deviant, and everything can't be, you know, boiled down to this dichotomy of male, female, straight, etc., etc. So yeah, you're kind of defaultly placed in that position, and this is where the issue starts getting a little bit thorny for me, because how like what did that Justin Trudeau apology mean? What did that actually mean? I'm having issues with the amount of reparation money that's being doled out. It's $100 million, and you know, you're kind of wondering, well, if a country were to pay for everything they've ever done to all their citizens throughout history, you'd be paying out a lot of money. So in that sense, it's kind of like, you know, well, what are we paying out exactly? Why is the queer issue being sort of like touted? And I guess it is a Justin Trudeau government. So, you know, Justin Trudeau is kind of doing this thing. I mean, you think about issues like Omar Carter and like the other 3 terrorists they recently, you know, paid money to out for wrongful imprisonment, etc., etc. And then, so you're just wondering, right? Like, I mean, how it is a Justin Trudeau government, and you know, he definitely goes around in this sort of feminist kind of postmodern, you know, thingy that, you know, leftist kind of thingy that he does when it comes to social issues, etc., etc. So it's really, you're trying to keep a bit of a scientific mind on, but you're being pulled by all sorts of, for me specifically speaking, you're pulled by all sorts of historical occurrences, like your own experiences, etc., etc. Like I remember being a very young kid and knowing I was very different, but I mean, I don't think I should have been forced into any contractual obligations before I turned 18 in terms of my sexuality. So I mean, there's a lot of issues at play there, and you know, I think the Justin Trudeau government, or the Justin Trudeau machine, is sometimes a bit of a culprit in terms of the causes they select and how they go about you know, repairing these old contentious issues. And I'm kind of half mind about it too in terms of the payments. I mean, you know, these are calculable things. I mean, these were government employees that were forced out of their jobs. You know, that I think there's a calculable, you know, very solid figure you could put on whatever happened to them, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. Well, maybe not. I don't know. So it's a thorny issue. I don't know exactly what to say about it yet, but it's definitely something that plays out in the world today. It's something that hasn't been, you know, resolute in terms of gay people, queer people, transgendered people. I think what needs to happen, though, above all else, above everything else, is the understanding of human rights. And I think it doesn't matter who's paying reparative money or who's doing what in terms of you know, making apologies, etc., etc. I think the law, a universal human rights code, as is the case, should be protecting transgendered people, queer people, gay people. It should be protecting those people. The only thing going against people like that are basically religious doctrines, and this needs to end. It really needs to end, because that's what, above everything else, is what drives persecution. and it for queer identified people. And I'm using all these terms like queer and stuff like that. So I mean, you know, but I mean, I don't think people are stupid. I think they get what queer means. But queer identity needs to be known as not something to be persecuted, or something to be rubbed out, or something to be damaged or attacked or anything like that. I think above all else, that's what needs to happen. All the reparative money stuff and all this crazy shit is just technicalities. Like, how do you deal with instantiations of this shit? But, you know, that's what needs to happen. And religion obviously is the epiphany of homophobia, especially the Abrahamic religions, obviously. So, you know, but, you know, anyway, that's all I have to say. Maybe not so much a video with any sort of resolve or anything like that, but, you know, that's kind of where I'm standing on all this stuff right now. Anyway, that's all. Bye.